So this morning's session is Headless and Composable Commerce, the who, what, when, where, and why. And we produced this session in partnership with Commercetools, really on the advice of several retailers in our community who felt like there were too many buzzwords around headless and composable commerce. And what we wanted to do with this session is really help you understand the differences between the approaches, understand the terms, and really develop a crawl, walk, run strategy. So we're starting with a brief presentation by Michael Scholz, VP of Product and Customer Marketing at CommerceTools, followed by a fireside chat with Andrei Rebrov. He's the CTO and co-founder of Scentbird, and he's going to share his experience adopting a composable commerce stack. So with that, Michael.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. As we all know, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and so is this presentation. So, putting the stakes up high here. So, as Veronica said, I run product and customer marketing at CommerceTools. CommerceTools, just as a background for those of you who are not familiar with the brand, we provide a composable commerce platform. So we're giving all the right components or independent components to retailers and also across other industries to run and build outstanding shopping experiences. So we have customers all the way from startups to kind of like small retailers, all the way to the likes of AT&T, Ulta Beauty, Sephora, Audi, BMW. And what they all have in common is they choose us because they require more flexibility and scalability for their digital commerce experiences. All that by reducing sort of the costs that are associated with that and also increasing efficiencies. But even in that little intro, I've already used a couple of buzzwords, especially composable. So this session is really kind of like a one-on-one on headless, MACH, composable, and all the sort of buzzwords that are in the market there. And I think Gartner is just to sort of cite them as an analyst, they've been going out for the last 2 or 3 years really hard saying how composable is going to change the world. Last year they came out and said, you know what, if you're adopting composability or composable as an approach, as a paradigm, you're going to be outpacing your competition by 80%. This year they came out and said this, if you're a large or a medium-sized company, chances are you're probably going to include composability as part of your RFI process, or you're looking at it as you make selections for new vendors or new applications in your organization. So overall, there's all these buzzwords flying around. Gartner even introduced this notion of a PBC, which is a packaged business capability. And so it just keeps on getting more confusing, and I think a lot of companies are jumping on the bandwagon. A lot of vendors are actually jumping on the bandwagon to really say, headless, we're composable, we're MACH. And so this, again, is a bit of an idea of to sort of solve that. And for that, we're looking sort of into the dark past just to give you a kind of like an idea of the evolution of these commerce technology platforms that you see here. So what you see here is on the left, you see the usual suspects, and I'm talking about the ones of ATG, Hybris, Intershop. Those were kind of like the companies that were founded or IPO'd in kind of like the mid-90s, early 2000s. And we're looking at platforms that were really built for the purpose of capturing digital transactions, the whole .com boom, really capturing that transaction for the desktop type experiences. And you had everything in there, right? Search, content, marketing, commerce, and all of that was powered by a legacy backend. And then I think you sort of moved on into kind of like this experience world. The iPhone wasn't even launched until 2007, so that was the point in time when you added an additional channel, right? And so we even introduced words like multi-channel because you had multiple channels to cater for. Short after the iPhone came out, we were not only talking about mobile, we're also talking about social, right? Everything that we've been hearing about for the last 20 years. But what was interesting is it was all about experience in that sort of second stage there. And we sort of saw the first decoupling of front and back end, which is really the pure definition of what headless really is. You're decoupling the front and the back end. Fundamentally, nothing new, but it already started kind of like the early 2000s, mid sort of 2005, 2007 when the iPhone was launched. And again, you were buying solutions to build out that consistent front end layer there. Fast forwarding, we're looking at kind of like the API suite. As you can tell, it is already getting a little bit more technical. We're using and introducing the term API. But the difference here between the second and the third stage is really you're not only decoupling front and back end, you're also now actually considering building your own front end. So depending on the different channels that you have, it might no longer be just the website. It might not be the sort of app that you're building, whether it's native or sort of something else. But you're constantly building your own front end. And I think what you're seeing on the back end is also you're sort of decoupling a little the commerce platform in and of itself. So you're exposing APIs or different functionalities. You're exposing microservices via APIs to the front end. But all of that from a commercial approach, how you talk to vendors, how you engage with vendors, how you're effectively getting priced out or charged out from a commercial perspective, you're still buying the entire bundle. And I think where we're going towards with Composable is all bets are off. The gloves are off and everything goes. So everything is expendable. So you're no longer just decoupling the front and the back end, you're decoupling the entire stack. And that includes the commerce engine. So previously it was all the commerce engine and then a marketing tool here and a visualization tool here and a personalization tool here. I think Composable really means you're decoupling the entire stack and everything goes, and you're really sort of going forward a best of breed approach for all of these different modules. And Gartner even introduces this concept of modularity for composable commerce. And so you can then literally go out and say, you know what, for commerce, I'm selecting company ABC. For search, I'm going to look at like an Algolia, like a Constructor, like a Coveo, or like a Bloomreach. For personalization, I'm looking at these companies. For promotions, I'm looking at Talent One. So it's effectively a curated list of best-of-breed vendors for these individual functions like content, like marketing, like search, like commerce. And I think the interesting thing to note here is it's not all just going down this technical route. Like we see things on the top there like commerce-led, experience-led, things of that nature. Just because we're not naming these sort of categories or these stages in that evolution doesn't mean there's no longer a content focus or an experience focus. I think we're also seeing this notion, I mentioned multi-channel before. We then sort of adopted the term omni-channel, right? Omnichannel was the next generation or the next step in the evolution of multi-channel because you wanted to articulate the same sort of brand experience across different channels. And I think depending on the brand or the type of brand that you are, I think there's a time and a place when multi-channel makes sense because you really want just a particular experience for this particular channel. You don't need to push through a consistent brand experience through the different channels. Like if you have different storefronts, different brands, if you have brands across the globe, I think there's an idea of really thinking about that multi-channel approach. So I think we're really starting to go from multi-channel to omni-channel. We're looking at terms like unified commerce or contextual commerce. I think we're now sort of going back into omni-channel again because I think what people called omni-channel 5 years ago is something completely different than what it is now. And I think we're going to see a lot more happening with this term and how people want to cater for these individual channels with the sort of thinking of like generative AI and things of that nature. So it's going to be interesting. And so this obviously was a pretty loaded slide, and there's a lot of talk tracks in that. If you really were to sort of dumb it down, I think it's really the notion of you're looking at a monolithic application, legacy, everything sort of very rigid, not really scalable. You're starting to decouple front and back end, which again is the definition of headless. And then you're going forward to a notion of what composability really looks like. It's really decoupled heads, decoupled touch points, a lot of those, so more than multi-channel. And then you have a composable tech stack on the bottom. Really, again, this curation of best of breed applications or modules, as Gartner calls them, whether it's content, whether that's search, and all the other things that you need to run a successful business. The way that we're looking at it is actually that we're defining composable commerce because there is so much gray in the world out there, and we want to help you guys to sort of cut through the noise and actually keep all the vendors in check and honest to each other. So what we've done is we're looking at the different stages, right? You can see the core components, which are those colored building blocks around engagement, core commerce, payment, system of records. What we're doing is we're assembling them, and we came up with 3 tenets to really figure out, is a solution composable or not? And those 3 key traits are cloud-native SaaS, independent components, and tech agnostic. When we talk about cloud-native SaaS, I think it's important to understand what that really means, because there's a lot of legacy vendors that claim they're the fastest growing cloud company in the world, that they're really in the cloud. I think for us, we're in the cloud, we're built in the cloud, we're built for the cloud, we're a first-class citizen in the cloud. And so what that means is everything that we do is based either on Google Cloud, on the Google Cloud platform, or AWS. You can choose. It's pretty much all the public infrastructure, cloud infrastructure vendors are up for grabs there. But the notion, the key here is, it is not cloud hosted. Cloud hosted really means kind of like those old school legacy platforms that effectively have a zip file that you would have previously found on a CD-ROM and you would have plugged into your PC. It's really all about the notion of a zip file being hosted on a virtual machine that is hosted on someone's server in the basement, right? Cloud native really means it is built in the cloud for the cloud. You can access and unlock the entire ecosystem from like Google or AWS, right? All the vision APIs, BigQuery, all the data visualization tools, everything is available. And there's also this notion of access of data. Like you don't have to like import and export different data sets to pump them into a data visualization tool. The data is already on GCP. For us, it's on GCP and sitting also on MongoDB. So they have pure access to data, and you can sort of really do personalizations, promotions, recommendations, everything that you want without the extra sort of necessary steps to download, massage the data, look at your data model, things of that nature. So for us, one of the key traits to really call BS effectively on some of those vendors is to say, are you cloud native or not? It doesn't even help if you're just a monolithic solution hosted on a cloud infrastructure. Next one is independent components. We've sort of talked about it. Gartner alludes to it with modularity. I think this is really the notion of understanding how you can use each of the individual components and access and consume them independently. So that's commercially as well as technically. Technically is easy, but commercially is where a vendor really might take you down the road of you still have to buy the entire platform. So I think the future will be where you just buy these individual components or these modules, or even one step further where you're literally just saying, you know what, I'm going to buy 3 commerce APIs from this vendor, I'm going to buy 2 APIs from this search vendor, I'm going to buy 1 discount and promotion engine from this vendor. So I think it's yours for the taking. The world's the world's up for grabs, and I think taking these independent components will allow you to really go to market much, much, much faster. The last one is about being tech agnostic. So that I think is an interesting point as well, because the notion here is all the investments that you have made in your staff, into your resources, into your teams, everything still holds up. Because being tech agnostic means, yes, you're communicating via APIs, and that's the communication protocol, but it doesn't matter what cloud infrastructure you're sitting on, what programming language you're using, because you have software development kits that take care of all of this for you. So there's no longer a proprietary software language that is holding you back or some sort of other technical debt that's holding you back. Everything is tech agnostic, and so you can really double down on the investment that you've already made with your company. And so again, this is really, really technical, but what does it mean to really the business persona? And I think the 3 things before I get over to Andrei and kind of like the fireside chat here is really the notion of infinite scale, like how quickly can you go to market? It's not in terms of infinite scale just going up and making more money. Of course, that's what we all want, but it goes into all the different directions, right? Like it goes into speed, going to market faster, opening up new brands, new channels, new touch points, and thinking about that respectively. The other notion is around unlimited flexibility. So really changing these different components. And if you think, you know what, one component or one module on this tech stack doesn't work for me any longer, you can replace it because everything is expendable in that stack. And the other thing is the notion of lower costs. So it's really around investing in the sort of financial and technological scalability that you need to run your business. And you can do that at a much, much lower cost. And we can talk about how that is and what a TCO analysis looks like for that. So with the last sort of 15 minutes, I wanted to really go into kind of like a between two ferns chat with Andrei. The CTO was already introduced. So yeah, I was really hoping for ferns, but this does the trick. Over to you. Thank you. So we're just going to have a chat about like real-time examples of what that really means, what composable, what Headless, what MACH means. And we have Andrei here. Do you want to introduce yourself and your company?
Sure, and thanks for having me here today. My name is Andrei. I am CTO and co-founder at Scentbird. Been there since the beginning, and it's going to be almost 10 years, so really soon.
Okay, awesome. And you said it's about 10 years. What were your sort of early steps for Scentbird? How did you approach the digital journey?
Sure. So I'm an engineer in my heart, and obviously as an engineer, I love to build things. And one of the earliest debate we had when we started the company was, do we want to use one of the existing e-commerce platform, or we want to build our solution from scratch? And we decided to go with a homegrown solution because when you're a startup, you honestly have no idea what are you building. You have a notion of the problem you want to solve. You're not sure how exactly you want to solve, so you want to be flexible. And if next day you come up with a different idea, you want to rush into it and build it as soon as you can. And that's exactly what happened to us. We spent a year pursuing the business model of try before you buy, and then when we finally were convinced that it doesn't work, in a matter of a week, we changed to the subscription business, and that's what we are today.
And did any of those first initial steps influence how you're running your business now, or has something fundamentally changed?
Yes. So when we started the subscription business, it was 2014. It was the rise of the subscription models, Ipsy, Birchbox, WA, and others. But unfortunately, there were not that many tools that supported the subscription. E-commerce, yes, you can pick from Shopify, Magento, you name it. For subscription, no. So we realized that we are building something unique, but while doing that, we actually, in many cases, solve the common problem, like the CRM, like charging customers, email, you name it. So quickly came the realization that we only need to build what makes us unique, what creates a unique experience for our customers. The rest we should give out to our partners, because the temptation to build everything is high. Again, as an engineer, I worked for an organization in a 200 department when we had like 5 different libraries to work with time, because that's what engineers do. Mm-hmm. But as a business leader, you have to be smart about your money, and for D2C, it's hard to raise money, so you have to be smart about the size of your team, about what you do. So we decided, okay, let's leave it to our partners to do the best in terms of solving a particular problem. The rest, the composition of the e-commerce, we will leave to us.
Okay, awesome. And so I think there's this notion of building, right? Like building a custom stack or building something homegrown, all the way to appreciating, you know what, there's pieces of the commerce stack that you need to go out to market for. So how do you look at this notion of composability and approaching that market as a retailer? Mm-hmm.
Sure. So it all starts with solving a customer need, because unfortunately what happens a lot of people trying to pursue certain buzzword, like they see, okay, everyone is going MACH, IKEA is going MACH, Puma is going MACH, let's do the same, without understanding why they do need this. So the quick example from just a recent event, we decided that we also need to do personalization. But what exactly does it mean? Because everyone right now provides personalization service. You talk to these companies, they do different things. So let's go back for a second and ask ourselves, what is the customer problem we're trying to solve? So we are a company that gives access to hundreds and hundreds of different perfumes to your customers. In many cases, people have no idea not just what perfume smells like, but what the different note smells like. So we need to personalize the experience in discovery, and this is how we start first. We define the problem. Okay, we need to make sure we can ask customers the right question and then present them the results in a way they like it. So after that, we go to different companies and ask, hey guys, this is what we are trying to build. How can you help us? And this is how the conversation starts.
Okay, awesome. And so you sort of said, obviously, let's start with the problem. But as you sort of identified the problem, you defined, documented the problem, how do you go about solving it with technology? Like, like Veronica was alluding to, like a crawl, walk, run phase. Other companies do like more of a big bang type approach. How did you approach the staging, the crawl, walk, run, or another sort of start to it? Like, how do you get started is, I guess, the real question.
I think working in a startup gives, in that case, an unfair advantage because you usually operate on limited time, limited budget, limited resources, everything is limited, but you have to achieve first wins really fast. So it kind of tells you need small working MVP, which in some cases people attribute to minimal viable product, in some cases, and I like that better, minimal valuable product. So in a short period of time, you're trying to build something valuable and deliver it to the customers. So, and that's also a requirement when we work, when we're trying to pick a partner. Hey guys, can we pick from your entire stack something that we can build, let's say in a month or two, already deliver it to the customer, and then continue to build the rest? Because everyone is looking at you when you're a digital company, a digital department. Your CEO looks at you, hey, when our investment will go back and when we start building something that drives revenue, your CFO and finance team looks at you, asking where the return, and so on and so forth. So you want to get to these first wins as soon as possible. I've been in a situation of big bank projects. I guess everyone who had experience implementing ERP knows that it just goes and goes and goes. And I've been to the MACH conference last week, and that was an interesting presentation from a guy from Puma, and he said there is a book that tells a story of how big projects are being built, and there is a statistics in terms of which industry is the worst in terms of estimates and how bad they are. So the second place is, I believe, nuclear waste industry. I think they are off their estimates 440%. First place goes to IT, 447%, which tells you a story. So the bigger the project you are trying to build, the more wrong you'll be in terms of time and budget. So going with MVP gives you all advantage of achieving your results in a better way.
And is that statement true also once you're live? So let's assuming if we're comparing apples to apples, so looking at a monolithic all-in-one suite, maybe even doing a big bang approach, but let's just say there's a definition of done. How does that statement still ring true once you're live? Do you still have that same momentum effect, that same sort of speed to market?
Exactly. One thing that I really like about my job and working with Incomposable stack, because I am able to unlock new possibilities for other teams, marketing, biz dev, operations, accounting, because you deliver something small and then people become creative and they see, okay, I can use this in this way, that way. And they don't have to wait for a year until you deliver something, then they have to learn how to use it for another 3 to 6 months and then actually start doing the job. Like as soon as you deliver something to them, they actively use it, they become fond of it, and they wait for you to build something else. So there is like infinite feedback loop, not only from your end customers, but also from other departments, and you just become more and more creative, and no one is stuck.
And so we've been talking a lot about the benefits of composable. Is there a time or is there a scenario or maybe an industry or a segment where you don't think those traits or those benefits apply to composability? Like where doesn't it work?
It is a good question. I would say when you have to iterate fast, when you have to learn by doing things, this is when you need to go composable. If you're building an airplane, if you're building a nuclear station or something of that matter, I would highly recommend you to go waterfall-y, like using big traditional enterprise way of doing things. In a highly competitive area like commerce, I don't know, social, you name it, if you use composable approach, if you embrace MACH, you have a competitive advantage.
So there's a lot of sort of myths in the market that it's complicated, it's slow, it's expensive, it's only for enterprise. Like if I'm just selling T-shirts, $5 million online revenue a year, like does it still make sense, or like do people draw the line? Is there like this hesitation? Like do you see that among your peers as well?
I would say yes. There is a notion that having your own engineering team is hard, it is expensive, like you can only afford it if you're in enterprise. But let's be honest, even if you run on a traditional e-commerce platform, at some point you still will be working with the SI, or you'll have your own platform team. You'll still run it as a traditional IT project. And it's not that different from building things composable. Yes, it's easier to start with a platform because you register, you upload your SKUs, and voila, you're there. But then at some point, you'll actually become slower and slower and slower because more and more often you'll hit all the platform limitations. And this is where you need to make a decision for yourself. Do you want to continue to use the platform, or you are ready to what's called the digital transformation? And again, to the notion of big bang projects, you don't have to start with a 2-year project. With the approach of composability, you can actually start building things small, migrate piece by piece, and already getting benefit from it. So getting back to the original question, this is how I see being on the platform versus being on composable. If your only value proposition to a customer is your physical product, then you're fine just being on some platform. If you want to build experience, if you want to provide service to your customers, if you want to provide this service on infinite matter, then at some point you'll have to go composable, because you want to build this scalability, as you said. Scalability is not just how many requests per second you can perform, you can serve. It's how you can scale your business and how you can serve your customers.
Okay. And so let's say you've heard all the buzzwords, you sort of have familiarity with it, you sign up to the notion of composable. I mean, you started as an engineer and you made your way up all the way to the CTO, and obviously your conversations have changed, right? You're speaking to your CFO peers and your CEO. How does that conversation change? And also, wherever you are on the totem pole, on the tech side, how do you sell composable to the business personas in the organization?
And that is a really good question. I would say most of my job right now is about educating my leadership about new technologies, what composable means, what MACH means, what generative AI means, what personalization means, and how we can benefit from it. Because my job is to give an unfair advantage to other departments. My job is not to bring new technology and make things complicated. Like, it's vice versa. I want to help other people. So first educate people and then do brainstorms, because one of the things that everyone tells you when you ask what is the list of things that I have to have when I want to start digital transformation, you have to have a buy-in from your leadership. In order to get the buy-in, people shouldn't be scary of the new technology. People should understand what it is. They should know the difference, because once they know the difference, they won't buy to not unfair marketing strategy that some of the big platforms right now utilize when they call things which are not. And then you do the brainstorms, you come up with a list of problems you want to solve, and then you start building things.
Andrei, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.